Hey gun people! Moki's make a cameo appearance. Decided to eat his little cat food here today. That's my messy corner though. I'm still working on that area. So I want to talk about kind of use of force here. I got a question the other day. Give a shout out to Jake. He's from Houston. I just turn that? I guess it's alright. He asked a question about, I think on one of the videos, the two South Carolina cops that were arresting the dude. He pulled out a gun, ended up shooting one of the cops, runs off, and then the cops ended up killing him. I did a review on it. And he asked the question, when a guy started resisting, would it have been legal for the cops to knee that guy in the nuts? And I mean, it's kind of an interesting question. And it kind of, when I tried to answer him, through texting and email, it was kind of like, I'm not sure I could get that point across. But I always figure when somebody has a decent question like that to where it makes sense that there could be some confusion, maybe I haven't, hey Moki, where are you going? I haven't covered it enough. He decided to leave. So let's talk about use of force and the level of force. Remember, our cops and the government standard for using force is, as a cop, when I arrest you or I'm making a lawful arrest or a lawful detention, if I'm putting hands or using force on you, that force must be reasonable and necessary. Now, necessary is kind of played around, but reasonable is the key word more. Is it reasonable? Now, of course, if you ask the thugs and some of the idiots that come here on this channel and go, I hate all you cops, you should be dead, you're about to boot. Like, if you ask them, nothing's going to be reasonable. So how do you know what's reasonable? Do we ask, the dummies in prison who got caught and they think everything's unreasonable? Do we ask a liberal who think that guns are bad and even cops shouldn't have guns and we should run around and give people suckers in order to get them to comply with us? Who do we ask on what's reasonable? Well, the reasonablest standard is applied to people with the same amount of training or experience as the person that's doing the act. So in the eyes of the government of the law, if a doctor does something in an operation and everybody goes, man, that's crazy. I mean, who would have thought that having a Makita drill or a damn, what kind of drill do I have? I can't think. DeWalt. If you have a DeWalt drill in an operating room with a wood screw and you screw it into the bone of a person, 20 years, 30 years ago, before they started doing that to where it was accepted, somebody might have been, holy shit, that's unreasonable. What the hell is this doctor? The first doctor that brought his drill from the garage and put a wood screw in a guy's bone was probably crucified for being unethical and how could you, and it's not a car, and now it's very standard procedure. A person just had a broken hip and that's exactly what they did. They put this big old screws in their hip and connected the bone so it could grow back together with a drill. So, reasonableness is judged by the people with the same training and experience as you. So, if a doctor did something that was considered unreasonable, would they ask a first-term medical student if this doctor had 20 years experience, if his actions were reasonable? No, because it doesn't have the same training and experience. Well, it's the same way with cops. If I'm out there making an arrest, things that I do, if you ask a rookie that just got out of the academy, he would be like, holy shit, he can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. That's against the law. He would think it was very unreasonable. But if you ask somebody with the same training and experience that I had, they would say, that's perfectly reasonable. That's what we're trained. That's a standard operating procedure. That's how we've always done it. And just about anybody in that situation who had the same training as this guy would have probably done the same thing. So there's your reasonable standard. So back to the original question. If a guy is resisting, can you knee him in the nuts? Well, who's doing the kneeing? Is it the guy that just got out of the academy in 1 year? Or is it the guy who's been on the street for 15 years? That matters. It doesn't matter whether it's justified or reasonable, but it matters on how they concluded. When you're becoming a cop, they give you a lot of scenario questions, and they ask you a lot of questions, you know, like, this happened, you show up, and this happened, what do you do? And you got to give an answer. And then they throw in some crazy shit, and you're like, holy shit, now what do I do? I don't want to say the wrong answer. I don't want. So they try to trick you up to get you to answer things, even though it's unreasonable, to figure out your thought process. Do you have the ability to take facts and circumstances, adjust, and do something that's reasonable? Now, obviously, a guy applying for a cop who's never worked as a cop, his answers are going to be different than a cop who's been a cop. You know, they say cops who have been cops 10, 15 years will never pass a psych. Well, that's not necessarily true. They probably wouldn't pass an initial psych that they give to new officers, but a psychologist who's been around cops and understands cops would modify that psych and apply it to this cop's experience for 15 years and would say it is reasonable and he would pass. Because passing a psych is not in a vacuum. It depends on where you're from and what circumstances and why. You know, if I said, you know, I hate all women, and then all of a sudden it comes out that women burnt me as a kid, and I was, you know, sold, and I was beat, and I was stabbed, and I was hung in a corner and beat by women, it might be reasonable for me to have a non-normal thing toward women. Vice versa, if a woman's been raped and beat and molested as a kid, and she says, I hate men, you would have to modify that a little bit because of her experiences. It's reasonable that she would have a dislike toward men. Even though it's not right to say all men are bad or all women are bad or to judge everyone, but it's reasonable that she would base or he would base his conclusions on his past experience. Rattlesnakes. I know rattlesnakes bite. Never been bitten by a rattlesnake. Never even, I think I picked up a couple dead ones after they were killed, but never picked up a live rattlesnake. Never messed with a live rattlesnake other than getting the hell out of there and giving him his space. Does that mean that my actions to be scared or leery or careful around rattlesnakes is unreasonable? I don't think it is. Liberals think it is. Liberals think I'm being judgmental and I shouldn't judge all rattlesnakes because one bit me. And that I should be more open, and I should understand that not all rattlesnakes bite. And they're right. Maybe I know a guy who loved rattlesnakes. He had a bunch of them, and he'd handle them all the time, and he didn't get bit. He's been bit a few times, but he handled them all the time, and he loved them. He was just some reptile weird dude in the Air Force that loved snakes. So would I base my opinion on this guy and say, well, if he hugged a snake, I guess I can go out there and hug all the rattlesnakes I find? After I get bit a few times, I would probably, if I had a brain, and I didn't listen to the liberals telling me what to think, I would go, that's probably still not a good idea. Even though that guy did it, most rattlesnakes bite. I should be leery and be careful. So a reasonable is standard, and that's why, you know, everybody's always cracking me out, you hate liberals and you lose your point, and because you crack on liberals you don't have credibility. Look, I'm just telling you the way it is. I'm not changing the facts. You can believe it or not believe it. If you think liberals are great and wonderful and they've built all these great countries, just please put a list. Next time you complain about me cracking on liberals, please put a list of liberal countries that started as liberalism where they just gave everything away and government ran everything. Just give me one country that started that way and that was prosperous and did good things. Because you can't. And that's my problem with liberal, because it's just liberalism is unreasonable. It's not, it takes away the thought process and critical thinking. And that's why they redefine words, and they're always bombarding you with racism and bigotry and sexism and you're homophobic, and they have to come up with all these words to suppress reasonable thinking that most people used to be able to do, and now it's kind of getting weeded out because we have a government-controlled education system. So back to my main topic, because I got kind of sidetracked there. Reasonable force. If I knee a suspect in the groin, is it reasonable? Well, how are they going to judge is it reasonable? It's not just on our experience and what others would do. They have to, is it reasonable for that situation? Because technically, your nuts, your spine, neck, those are what we call critical areas or no strike zones. You don't want to hit those things with your baton or impact weapons. And if I knee somebody, I'm using my knee as an impact weapon. If I elbow them, I'm using my elbow as an impact weapon. If I palm strike them, I'm using my palm as an impact weapon. So normally, I don't want to go up and palm strike somebody in the back of the neck and spine and snap their freaking neck, because that's considered deadly force. So these no target zones are places that will probably kill you. And deadly force, remember, it doesn't have to kill you. It's force that is likely to cause seriously bodily injury and or death. Everybody wants to get caught up on the death part. It's actually seriously bodily injury. That's why when somebody's on the ground and you kick them in the head, that's usually considered deadly force. Unless you're Black Lives Matter and you're doing it to a white person, then it's okay, and you were suppressed and the guy was a racist and he said a bad word or he looked at you wrong, so therefore it's justified. And black people don't get charged with hate crimes. And I'm always saying this because the double standard is there. And just because I point it out, people want to go, you're racist, you're always picking. Look, I'm just telling you the way it is. So, deadly force is that force which is likely to cause seriously bodily injury and or death. So if I knee somebody, is that going to kill him? Probably not. Could it cause seriously bodily injury? If I take away his ability to have kids, the courts kind of look at that as that's seriously bodily injury. You're taking away his ability to have children, which probably isn't a bad thing for a lot of people that need to be kicked in the nuts. But the courts don't see it that way, and they would say, maybe it's not reasonable. So, on that situation with the South Carolina cops, where they're wrestling him, and he starts resisting, and they're saying, hey, don't resist, don't pull away, and they're being all nice and PC and liberal, and all the liberals are clapping that the cops did such a great job, and, if they got killed, it's no big deal. It's better the cops get killed than it is that they might use reasonable and necessary force to stop some guy. Smokey, why do you keep coming in and out, boy? You can knee a guy if you can justify that the force, hi Smokey, was reasonable. Come here, what are you doing? Come say hi to YouTubey people. I always get good comments when you come say hello. You come over here and say hello to the YouTubey people. They like you. They like little Mokey. They like Mr. Mokey, because he's a good kitty, and he's going to get a big spanking, and I'm going to get... He's a bad kitty. Is this reasonable and necessary force? Is he getting a spanking, or is he getting patted? He's getting patted because I do it all the time, and he knows it. So, if you kick somebody in the nuts, if you hit somebody in the head or neck, you got to do it one of two ways. One way is deadly force is authorized. Guy's got a gun, he's trying to kill you, you can hit him in the head, you can kick him in the nuts, you can stab a rake in his spine, you can do whatever it takes, because deadly force is authorized. The other way to get to there is you are not aiming, and I'm not saying to get to there, but sometimes it happens. I mean, there's strikes. I can knee you right on the inside of the groin or the knee area here if we're close in and I knee you, and it will drop your weight, it'll take you down, and I can get the advantage on you. So, but when I knee you there, if you happen to move in on me, and while I'm going for your knee, you move in, I hit you in the groin, that's called an accidental area or accidental strike to one of those non-target zones. And the report would say, due to the suspect's resistance, ducking, and dodging, when I kneed his leg, he moved and I hit him in the nuts. And I crushed his nut, and now he can't have children, and I did the world a favor, but I didn't do it intentionally because he moved and he was resisting. If I go for a strike zone on a clavicle and I'm coming down going for your clavicle, and when I do, you swing at me and move your head and I hit you in the head, deadly force wasn't authorized, so that strike is not authorized. But because of the suspect's dodging, resistive behavior, and movement, it wasn't my target zone or it wasn't my target area. It was an accidental strike to a non-target zone. So when somebody asks me, hey, when somebody resists, can you kick them in the nuts? Can you do what? When you throw them on the ground, can you stand on their neck? Can you do a knee drop to their neck? Most of the times that's going to be no, unless when those two cops, remember, the force is judged on what the cops knew at the time they used the force, not what they found out later. Those cops did not know that guy had a gun till he pulled it out and shot him. So anything after that point, they're good to go. They can do anything after that gun was pulled out and fired. Anything. You name it. Pick up a stick, stab it in his eye, stick it in his ear, whatever. Anything they do after he pulls that gun out, completely authorized. But when he's just resisting over sleeping in a car or having marijuana, whatever the hell it was they were going to put him in custody for that use of force, you got to be careful. And that's why cops are always on this reaction mode instead of action. Because we have to justify our actions unless we're reacting to what you're doing. So it's kind of a complicated process. After you do it for years, it kind of becomes instinctual. But obviously I didn't explain it good because Jake asked me a question. I was like, that's a pretty good question. And, you know, maybe I haven't covered that topic clear enough. So hopefully I did cover it. And, you know, of course the liberals will probably be turning me off as soon as I crack on them because they're crybabies and they're going to be writing YouTube saying, "This guy's a hater. He needs to be, I can't listen to him. And he abused his cat." Moki, you're a good kitty. All right, well, in that